Tip number 1. You're putting a screw in the end of the board. You're 40 feet up on a ladder. You dropped your bit that you were going to use for a pilot hole, but you have a screw and you have a Torx bit or a Phillips bit. Actually, don't ever use a Phillips. That's a terrible idea. But you can still do the same thing with these two items. You don't need to actually have a pilot hole bit. First thing, you put the screw in, pull it out. Then I'm going to take the end of this, create a little bit of a recess. Crude? Yes. But does it work? Yes. Tip number 2. It's the end of the day, you've just worked a 16-hour shift, you're trying to do some math, you're trying to do some simple math, but it's too hard for you. The math that you're trying to do is you're trying to take this board and you're trying to divide it exactly in half. Now, if I take out my handy dandy ruler, what I do is I measure and I see that it's 7 3/16. Now, the issue with 3/16 is 3/16 is a relatively hard number to divide in half with your head. So, what's a guy or gal to do? You need a ruler. And you need to be able to divide a number, like for example, 8 1/2 or 10 1/2. So what I'm doing is this is the 0 point and this is the 10 point of the ruler. Take out my pencil and I can go ahead and mark it. Wham. That's 5 inches on the hypotenuse, or exactly half. You can also do it with thirds. So if I wanted to divide this into thirds, for example, a number that's easily divisible by 3 is 9. So I'm going to put a mark at 3. I'll put a mark at 6, and lo and behold, I have 3 equal parts. 1, 2, 3. Tip number 3, clock. Usually you're doing this, or you're taking out your blade, or you're jabbing it in there like so, because the end of this thing is dried out. What I like to do, what I learned from a painter one time, was take out a piece of tape. Doesn't matter if it's masking tape, foil tape, or anything else. Go ahead and put that piece of tape on the end like so. Make a little cap, if you will, make sure it's sealed around there. Then go over to your caulk gun and squeeze out just a little bit of a booger in there. Put your caulk away. Come back 2 weeks later, come back 2 months later, pull it off. That little booger will have dried up, but you'll have a nice clean caulk tube to use later on. Let's say, for example, that you're ripping down a bunch of plywood to make it into furring strips or something like that, and you need to rip up 30 sheets of plywood into 2 1/4 inch strips for some reason. You don't have a table saw, but you have a circular saw. What you need for this is you need 2 C-clamps and a block of wood that's relatively straight. And if you clamp it on here, what you have is an improvised fence that you can use to later rip up a bunch of stuff. Perfect? No. But does it work? Yes. Next tip is for tool belt organization. You reach into your pouch and you pull out a screw, you pull out a nail, you pull out a fastener that you really don't want. Your pouch is so messed up, it's so mixed up that you can never find the 16-penny nail, the Torx head screw, whatever else you need. Yogurt containers. Got Torx head screws in here, siding nails, and cap nail. They fit in there nicely. Can reach down and grab them, and I can either swap them out or stack them if I need. Wax is your friend. I'm taking this absolutely enormous lag bolt, putting it through this and into my house. What I can do, put a little bit of wax on the threads. And it makes the ratcheting oh so much sweeter. Sandpaper makes a great pencil sharpener if you want to put a really nice sharp point on the end of a thick piece of lead. When possible, cut a shoulder or a shelf like this instead of doing something like this. The issue here is that the only thing that's holding up the weight of the deck, the only thing that's holding up the force right here, is these 2 little screws. And screws, as you should know, have very little shear value. Do your power tool cords look something like this? If so, consider wrapping them like this. Let's say, for example, that you're installing baseboard on an inside corner, and you're trying to guess if that is 39.5, if that's 40, if that's 40 and an eighth, 40 and a 16. Take your tape measure, go to the corner, measure back 2 inches and put a mark. Pull out your measurement. So I see it's 34 and 15/16. So 34 and 15/16 plus 2 would be 36 and 15/16. Then you can go over to your baseboard and cut it exactly. Pex, slit down the center, makes a great edge protector on chisels, draw knives, etc. Tip 8, buy a good hammer. This is a Vaughn. It's got a wood handle. Don't ever buy fiberglass or steel. Wood handle will serve you best. Take some electrical tape and wrap it around the top of the handle here. And what that's for is when you are pounding nails and you overshoot on that one nail and it glances off your handle, what it does is it just damages the tape and it doesn't actually damage your hammer. What I've also done is I've gone through and I painted the head of my hammer a pretty pinkish color, so when I drop it in a pile of brush or whatever else, it's easy to see. It also makes a great back scratcher as well. Read. Find woodworking. Find home building. Go to the library. Check out every book that you can on the subject. Tip number 11. Let's say, for example, that I want to know roughly how long a rafter I need, or how long a diagonal I need. I know the length of A, and I know the length of B. I can actually use these two items to calculate the exact length that I need. Let's say, for example, that this is 8, and let's say, for example, that this is 12. So we have 8 here, 8 feet, or 8 inches, and we have 12 here, 12 feet, or 12 inches. Take my tape measure, put the 0 on the 8, and I'll slide this one over to the 12, and I can see that, hey, I need to go out to the lumberyard, buy a piece of wood that is roughly 15 feet long, or a 2x6x16, or 2x8x16, but just a quick and easy trick for you to calculate the roughly. When I'm trying to square up something that's large, you can use a square, you can use a framing square or a speed square, but oftentimes that square, that right angle, is way too small. In my case, I like to use what's called a 3-4-5 triangle. The first leg of the triangle is 3, the second leg of the triangle is 4, and the third leg of the triangle is 5. Now, you could just remember this, or you could also do the math. And for those of you that have forgotten the math, it is same thing applies. If you look here, we have a 6, 8, and a 10-foot triangle. Okay. Now, as I mentioned previously, this could be in inches, this could be in feet, this could be in meters. It doesn't really matter what the unit is, but it works every single time. So this could be 6 inches, this could be 6 feet, this could be 8 inches or 8 feet.